How dare you refuse to help your sister? Dad snapped as I stared at my drained account. $88,000, gone overnight. Mom smiled. It was for her engagement party. She deserves a helicopter entrance and more. I blinked. My sister laughed and said, "Just do your duty as the older one." I didn't argue. I simply walked away. This morning, they finally discovered why. My name is Natalie. I'm 31, the older one, the responsible daughter. I work as an operations analyst at a logistics company. My desk is always clean, my shirts are always ironed on Sundays, and I can tell you the unit cost of a pallet out faster than I can tell you my favorite movie. I grew up in a house where being useful was the closest thing we had to love. So I learned to be useful. I fix printers. I organize closets. I send money for a bit that somehow becomes forever. My sister Ryan is 26. Ryan has charm like a coupon for free forgiveness. She smiles and parking spaces appear. She fails upward. In school, she won most likely to be on TV, and it stuck to her like glitter. She sells houses now, mainly by taking photos in nice kitchens and telling people vibes. Dad calls her his girl. Mom says she's got star quality. When I got my first real job, Dad said, "Good, steady." When Ryan got her first client, Dad said, "Finally, Destiny." Mom is the architect of our family illusions. She loves a plan with a theme and a budget that is flexible as long as the flexibility comes from me. She has lists, binders, tabs. She makes coffee in a French press because it looks fancier, then microwaves it twice and forgets it on the windowsill. She knows exactly what she wants from me before I know I'm in the room. I keep my life simple. A one-bedroom apartment over a dry cleaner. A car that rattles when it idles. A savings account I look at like a pet. I'm trying not to scare. I run before work. I eat oatmeal. I text "home safe" in the family chat because I have always been in the way that means available. This story begins at my parents' dining table. It's the long one Dad built out of oak when he was still doing carpentry. The varnish has bubbles in it because he rushed. The way he rushes when he wants a thing to be admired more than he wants it to be right. Mom had spread out glossy brochures like playing cards, venues, florists, something with a gold foil helicopter on the cover because apparently those exist. Ryan was half sitting on the edge of a chair, half on her phone, grinning at an angle that said mirror practice. "Okay," Mom said, tapping the binder with a pen. "Engagement party. Not just any party. A statement. A moment." She looked at me like a director about to give the lead actor her cue. "We'll need deposits. Early is cheaper," Dad grunted, the way he does when he has decided. "We do it right for Ryan. Once in a lifetime." Ryan glanced up, milk-white teeth. "Has to be epic. She deserves epic." "I thought the wedding is the epic part," I said. Careful, like I was testing ice with my foot. Mom flipped a page. "Weddings are for families. This is for their story. Helicopter entrance. Very tasteful. Not tacky at all. You only live once." She smiled at me. "Natalie, you know how these vendors book up. You'll handle it." "Handle what?" I asked, even though I knew. Even though I always know. "The budget," she said lightly. "You're good with numbers. You know how to do things efficiently." Ryan leaned back and stretched like a cat. "Just don't make it cheap," she said. "I have a brand," Dad added without looking at me. "And don't embarrass us." There it was, the tiny blade hidden in the napkin. Don't embarrass us. Not "can we talk?" Not "what can you do?" Just the assumption baked into the air. Older equals sponsor. Responsible equals invisible wallet. I blew on my coffee and watched the steam slide off. "What's the actual number, Mom?" She looked offended, like I had asked how much her love cost. "We'll figure it out. We always do," Ryan said. "Just do your big sister duty." Like the words were a joke she'd told 100 times, and it always got a laugh. Dad's phone dinged. He ignored it. Eyes on me now. "Don't make this difficult." I felt something small in my chest shift, like a door quietly clicking into a different frame. I wasn't angry. Not yet. Just awake. The room smelled like coffee and dust and a lemon candle trying too hard. I stood to refill my mug. Aunt Denise breezed in from the kitchen with a tray of deviled eggs and a comment that landed with that special family accuracy. "Natalie, you know how to be practical," she said. "Your sister knows how to be special." Everyone laughed. I didn't. That was the first trigger. Not the helicopter, not the binder, just the sentence that assigned me a role I didn't audition for. I took a sip and said, "Got it." and for once, I meant it in a way they didn't hear. It didn't start with helicopters. It started with birthdays, allowances, and what counted as a good reason. When I turned 12, I wanted a secondhand bike. Dad said, "You pay half, you'll take care of it." I mowed lawns. I raked leaves. I counted quarters on the kitchen table. When Ryan turned 12, she wanted a drone. "Girls need toys," Dad said, and bought the newest model. When it broke, because Ryan flew it into the maple, Dad said, "We'll get it fixed." When my bike got a flat, Dad said, "Patch kits in the garage. Be a woman." Money was a language we spoke without anyone teaching us grammar. Ryan asked, "Money came?" I asked, "Money became a lesson." I don't hate that. I learned to work, but there's a way lessons cut when they only go one direction. At 17, I worked nights at the grocery store and saved tips in a jar labeled college. The jar sat on the top shelf in my closet. One weekend in July, it moved to the kitchen counter. "Just for a minute," Mom said. "We need to pay the gas bill before it doubles. We'll put it back." Dad said they did over 3 months minus a little because things come up. The jar learned about evaporation. At 20, Ryan borrowed my car for a date and came back with the bumper zipped to the undercarriage with a bungee cord. "Long story," she said, shrugging. Dad told me, "Be proud your sister's dating a nice boy." I paid the $400 to fix it because pride doesn't make a safe left turn. At 23, when I graduated and got the logistics job, Mom threw a cookout. Aunt Denise hugged me and whispered, "We always knew you'd be useful." Like it was a prophecy fulfilled. The next week, Dad called. "We're switching the phone plan to a family plan. It'll save money." It saved theirs. I added my card just to set it up and never got it back. When I brought it up 6 months later, Mom said, "It's hard to pick a good moment with everything going on." When isn't there something going on? I kept a note on my phone labeled tallies. $68, urgent Comcast, $340, Ryan's tire, $175, Mom's crown popped off, $920 deposit for Ryan's first apartment because her credit had a mix-up, $200, Dad's bridge loan to cover a client check delay. They were going to Venmo Friday. They didn't. I deleted the note because it made me someone I didn't want to be, someone who kept score. Funny how not keeping score only helps the person who's winning. My savings grew anyway. I'm good at starving my own wants. I live small. Lunch was rice and eggs. I liked the number in the bank app more than I liked new shoes. I had a plan, a down payment on a small condo in 2 years, maybe a place with a balcony that could fit a chair. Then Ryan met Emma. She's kind and gentle and blinks 3 times when she's thinking. She made Ryan want to be better, but he thought better meant presenting bigger. Suddenly, we should do something nice. Became we can't be basic. He asked me for a little help with the ring. I said, "That's between you and the jeweler." He pouted and told Mom I was cold. Mom called and made it moral. "We stick together," she said. "Don't be the kind of person who can watch family struggle." A ring isn't a struggle, but in my family, definitions are flexible. The engagement party started as a backyard idea. Then it hopped fences. The garden at the Monarch, Mom said. It's magical. Then there was a string quartet, a champagne wall, a neon sign, and cursive. "Just the entrance has to be special," Ryan said, scrolling on her phone to show me a clip. 2 people stepping out of a helicopter onto a lawn while petals fell like snow. "It's just once," she said. "Look at the comments. Everyone cries." "Who's paying?" I asked, like the village idiot who asks where the water comes from. Dad said, "We're stretched," as if he had a right to narrate my checking account. "Maybe scale," I said carefully. "Do a cool car instead." Mom gave me the smile you give a child who colored outside the lines. "You think small because you're used to small, or because I have to pay for small." I said too fast. Dad's jaw tightened. "Watch your tone." The planning meetings got weird. Not obvious yelling, just subtle knives. "Natalie, you're so organized." Mom would purr, handing me a folder full of invoices. "Natalie, you're steady," Dad would say, sliding a deposit form across the table. Ryan would wink at me like we were in on a heist together, except I was the vault. I tried to set a boundary. I said, "I'll give $2,500. That's what I can do." I felt brave for a second, like I'd drawn a line. Mom blinked. "That doesn't even cover the ice sculpture." She wasn't joking. Dad leaned in. "Don't be petty." "Petty is a helicopter," I said. He tilted his head like he didn't recognize the word. A week later, I came by with a spreadsheet. It was simple. Columns for vendor, cost, date, who's paying. I said, let's be clear and fair. Ryan laughed. This is giving tax audit. Mom said, money is energy, Natalie. Don't make it ugly. Dad said, we'll handle it, which in our house meant, you will. I started noticing small things at my place. A drawer slightly open where I keep my passport, the iPad I used. To set up the family phone plan moved. A post-it with a code half written and then torn. It made me feel paranoid, which is a lousy way to feel in your own apartment. I changed my bank password and set up two-factor authentication. I told myself I was being dramatic. Then came the night that tipped the scale. We were back at the oak table. Mom had a new binder tab. Arrival. Ryan had a video queued up of a helicopter descending over vineyards. Dad poured coffee like it was whiskey. Decision day. Mom chirped. Monarch said, we have to commit and pay the premium for the landing permit. They rarely offer it. It's fate or marketing. I said, don't start. Ryan said, just say yes, sis, be a sister. Aunt Denise, never missing a cue, added, you'll understand when it's your turn. Like I was in training for generosity and failing the quiz. I looked at their faces, open and expectant, like I was a vending machine that took kindness as currency. My stomach did a small, quiet flip. I can't, I said. Dad's chair scraped. The room stayed still like a photograph. How dare you refuse to help your sister? He snapped, not loudly, but with that tone that bruises. I didn't argue. I stood, rinsed my cup, and said, I have to get up early. I kissed Mom's temple because love and boundaries can sit in the same mouth. I walked out. On the drive home, I tried to decide whether I was wrong. My phone buzzed twice. Ryan, you're unbelievable. Then Mom, we'll talk tomorrow when you're calm. I went upstairs and set my alarm. I stared at the ceiling. I made a small list in my head, not of payments, of lines. Morning came. I made oatmeal. I opened my banking app to do my routine check before work, and then I stopped breathing. I stared at my screen for a full minute without blinking. The numbers didn't make sense. My savings account balance was a number that belonged to someone else. The available line had collapsed like a tent in a storm. $88,000 moved overnight. 4 transactions. A wire to Sky Vista Aviation, a cashier's check to Monarch Events, a charge to Floralux, and a debit labeled ALC Lighting. My stomach went cold and then hot and then hollow. I checked the details. The wire had been initiated at 1:42 a.m., the cashier's check purchased at 8:57 p.m. at a branch across town. The floor's deposit hit at 10:13 p.m. My phone had been on my nightstand. My card hadn't left my wallet. The app showed verified by passcode. I felt a little sick. I called the bank. The whole music sounded like an apology. A woman named Carrie picked up and read all the sentences in the compliance script about how they take unauthorized activity seriously. She asked if anyone else had access. I said no. Then I thought of the iPad, the drawer, the post-it. I changed my password last week. I added my voice felt far away. We can file a fraud claim, she said. We'll freeze your card and stop further transactions. If the person used credentials and knew your passcode, it may take investigation. I hung up and drove to my parents' house without deciding to. I parked. Crooked. I walked in. Mom was at the table with the binder open like an altar. Ryan had her feet up, flipping through a vendor booklet. Dad sat at the head like a judge in a small-town court. I held up my phone. Explain this. Mom didn't look sorry. She looked annoyed. We had to act fast, she said, as if she were telling me why she changed the thermostat. Monarch had another couple interested in the date. Dad folded his arms. Don't be dramatic. You'll get it back. You always make more. Ryan laughed. You're being weird. It's for love, sis. It's not like we took it to gamble. It's not yours, I said. My voice was calm. The calm I use when a vendor tries to overbill by pennies. It's family money. We're investing in a memory, Mom said, leaning forward like a guidance counselor. You'll thank me when you see the photos. You stole, I said. Dad slapped the table with his palm. Watch it. I changed my password, I said. Who had my phone? Ryan shrugged. You leave it around. It's not hard to guess. You use dates. Dad's mouth twisted. This is what you get for being secretive. I laughed once. It sounded like a bark. Secretive? It's my bank account. Mom smiled the way people smile before they say something obscene. She deserves a helicopter entrance and more. She tilted her head. You don't want her to look cheap. You drain my savings. I said each word its own step. 88,000. Ryan whistled low. Sounds bigger when you say it out loud. Just do your duty as the older one. There it was. The script. Duty means empty your pockets, hand over your spine, say yes until your mouth forgets other shapes. I put my phone away. I looked at the 3 people I have loved with an ache that used to feel like purpose. I realized I could argue for hours, and it would land like rain on wax. I'm not arguing, I said finally. Dad smirked, victory already warming his face. Good. You were embarrassing yourself. I stood. I took my keys off the hook by their door because somehow they'd ended up there. I set them in my pocket. Mom's eyes narrowed. Where are you going, home? I said to do what I should have done a long time ago. You can't stop the party, Ryan said. I looked at her. We'll see. Mom's voice turned sweet and dangerous. You're going to ruin your sister's life over a number on a screen. This isn't about revenge, I said steady. This is about closure. Dad muttered, therapy talk, like it tasted bad. I'll send you an email, I said, and walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't raise my voice. I got in my car and drove to the bank. The teller recognized the look on my face and didn't make me sit. She took me to an office with a fake plant and a real lock on the door. I told my story once, slow. She listened like a human being. She clicked keys. We're freezing the account, she said. The wire is pending. The cashier's check can be flagged. These vendor charges are pre-authorizations we can dispute. She had me sign an affidavit and added a note. Account hijacked by close relation. She set up a passphrase that no one in my family could guess, because it was a word none of them would pick. No, I called Sky Vista. A man with a cheerful voice answered. The kind people use when they know they are expensive. We don't reflect cancellations over the phone. I said, the booker signed a no refund clause. The booker used stolen funds. I have a bank fraud case number. If you fly that helicopter, you're participating in a criminal transaction. I gave him the number. I cited the bank. I CC'd my new email account I'd created that morning. He went quiet and said someone would call me back. I went to the Monarch. The event coordinator smiled until she saw my face. I told her the same sentence. Unauthorized funds. I showed her the case number. I handed her a printed letter, the kind I never write because I hate drama, stating that any contract signed in my name without my consent would be contested and prosecuted. She looked at the letter like it was hotter than the coffee in her hand and said, we'll review. I said, you have 24 hours. I CC'd Monarch's legal team from the email printed on the wall. Then I called my phone provider. Remove all additional lines from my plan as of today. Transfer any remaining balances to the individual users. The rep started the script about family savings. I understand, I said. Remove them. Click, click, done. 3 lines went dark. Not revenge, consequence. At home, I opened my laptop and made a new document titled 90 Days. I wrote, email only. I will not respond to calls or extensions. I'll reply to emails within 48 hours. I will not fund any expenses for the engagement or any emergencies that are not hospital or police level. I will gift $1,500 directly to Emma with a note for what she wants. I will not be an authorized user, guarantor, cosigner, or temporary holder for anyone. Twice monthly dinners are available. Public place, 1 hour. Thursdays at 6 o'clock. I printed it, slid it into a manila folder, and labeled it. What changes today? I slept for the first time in 2 nights. This morning, my phone started vibrating at 7:02 a.m. like it was possessed. 18 missed calls by 7:15. 14 from Dad, 3 from Mom, 1 from Aunt Denise. The group chat turned into an oven. Call me now. What did you do? My phone was off. Monarch says the payment is flagged. Sky Vista emailed saying the FAA permit is halted. I made coffee. At 7:40, someone pounded on my door. Dad. He didn't wait to be let in. He shoved past me, face the color of raw steak. You humiliated us. Mom followed, breathless, hair half done, binder clutched like a child. Ryan came last in a hoodie and sunglasses, like the paparazzi were in my hallway. They canceled the helicopter, she said as if reporting a death. Do you understand the helicopter? I set the manila folder on the counter next to the kettle. Read, I said. Dad slapped it. I'm not reading your little manifestos. Then listen, I said. The bank froze the wire and the check. They flagged the florist and lighting. Sky Vista and Monarch have my fraud case number. Any venue that takes stolen money becomes part of a crime. I will not be your criminal. Mom's eyes went glassy. Stolen? We're family. Family isn't a bank, I said. Ryan pulled off her sunglasses like she wanted me to see her eyes. You ruined the entrance. The fact that she meant it made me weirdly sad. I will never forgive you, she said, like a teenager. I pointed at the list. This is what I will no longer do. This is what I am willing to do. If you want help budgeting, ask respectfully. If you want to talk, email. If there's a hospital emergency, call and I'll pick up. Everything else is a no. Dad planted himself in my kitchen like a monument. You think you're righteous? You forced our hand. You said no. I said I would gift $2,500, I replied. You took $88,000. It was a loan. Mom tried. You'll make more. You're steady. I'm steady because I don't do this. I'm steady because my yes means yes, and my no means no. Ryan started pacing. Emma's parents are going to think we're clowns. I picked up the smaller envelope I'd put inside the folder and handed it to her. This is a check for $1,500. It's made out to Emma, not you. She can use it for flowers, a dress, or a vacation from this circus. She stared at the check like it was a personal insult. This is petty. It's a boundary, I said. Dad's voice dropped to the low register he uses when he wants to scare the room. If you don't fix this, you're out of the family. I looked at him, the man who taught me how to change a tire and also how to ignore my need for rest. I'm not out, I said. I'm just not for sale. Mom grabbed for the moral high ground and slipped. What will people say? They'll say we didn't arrive by helicopter, I said, and then they'll eat the chicken. She made a small, wounded sound. Ryan swore. Dad shook his head like a coach watching a player refuse to play through pain. I don't recognize you. I finally recognize me, I said. They left in a storm of whispered strategies. Minutes later, the messages started landing like hail. At 8:22, a new email subject. You are sick. Body, return the money. I replied once, attached the 90-day document, and wrote, I love you. Email only. Twice monthly dinners are available. I won't discuss the party again. At 9:03, a voicemail from Aunt Denise. You're breaking your mother's heart. At 10:11, another from Dad. The bank called. They're asking questions. You're going to get us in legal trouble. At 11:30, a text from Ryan. Just let the helicopter go through and we'll pay you back after the wedding. I didn't respond. She sent 13 question marks. I blocked her number and sent a single email. All communication by email. By noon, Sky Vista replied in writing. In light of the fraud alert, we are voiding the booking. The Monarch emailed, contract under review, deposit held in escrow pending investigation. The florist wrote a gracious paragraph about understanding family dynamics and no hard feelings. That one made me smile. I ate lunch, rice, eggs, hot sauce. My hands weren't shaking. At 3 p.m., I met with a lawyer for a 30-minute consult. She read the affidavit. She told me to keep every email, to stop talking on the phone, to document everything. If they retaliate, credit cards, utilities, call me, she said. But I think you've done the important part. Which is, I asked. You stopped pretending money is love, she said. It's not. It's a tool. You're using it to build a boundary. That night I took a long shower. Not the kind where you think of better comebacks. The kind where you wash your hair twice because you can. I made tea. I watched a dumb show where no one asked anyone for $98,000. My body remembered what quiet feels like. The panic in the family chat reached a fever by bedtime. Mom posted a Bible verse about honor. Dad said, a man, and then coward, which was a weird sequence. Ryan posted a black screen with white text. Some people are snakes. Emma, bless her, sent me a single email. I am sorry. I don't agree with this. Thank you for the check. I wrote back, I hope you get the party you want, not the entrance. She replied with a heart emoji. I didn't need a translation. I slept. The next morning, the house felt quieter. My phone didn't buzz. I poured coffee into my favorite mug, the one with a small chip on the rim, and sat by the window. The sunlight fell in a way that made dust motes float like tiny stars. I thought about the last few weeks, the argument, the stolen money, the helicopter that never came. It wasn't just about the money. It was about being seen, about finally saying no without guilt, about realizing that my value wasn't tied to being the helpful one in a family that rewarded spectacle over responsibility. I opened my laptop and reread the 90-day document. Each line, each boundary felt like a small brick in a wall I'd finally allowed myself to build. But unlike walls that isolate, this one felt like protection. I wasn't shutting them out. I was insisting on respect. I thought about Ryan. I didn't hate him. I loved him, in the messy, frustrating way only siblings can love. But love didn't mean letting someone walk through your life and leave destruction behind. Sometimes love means drawing lines that hurt, at first, before they heal. Mom called later that day. She didn't yell. She said, "Natalie, I don't agree with everything you did, but I see why you did it." It wasn't full reconciliation, but it was acknowledgement. I texted Emma. "I hope you're excited for your wedding," I wrote. And I meant it. I wasn't punishing anyone. I was reclaiming my peace. I spent the afternoon walking through the city, headphones on, music rising and falling with my steps. I felt lighter, not because the helicopter hadn't landed, but because I had landed, finally, on my own terms. By evening, I made a simple dinner, roasted vegetables and a piece of bread, the sort of meal that nourishes without ceremony. I thought about my apartment, the small balcony I'd promised myself, and the future I could shape without someone else's expectations. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like Natalie, not just the older sister, the responsible one, the invisible wallet, just me. I poured a glass of wine, leaned back in the chair by the window, and watched the sky turn from gold to indigo. Somewhere, far away, a helicopter might have landed for someone else, but here, in my life, I had landed myself, and that was enough. I closed my eyes, I breathed, I slept.